Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Church Ops 500 podcast. My name is Van. I'm actually a pastor of a church in the Cincinnati area, Cincinnati, Ohio. And I found that doing operations for a church is probably one of the most elusive and challenging positions to work within the church because it's not necessarily frontline ministry, but it's vital to the success of the ministry. And there's not a whole lot of information out there that's super helpful to get you going. This podcast specifically is focused for those folks that don't have a great infrastructure or that are in a space where they're trying to kind of like figure it out on their own. A little bit of my background, my history, the why behind this, why the podcast. I didn't have a lot of help when I started doing church ministry when it came to the operation side of things. And over time, I began to develop and grab a lot of the tools and the experiences that were needed to do it well. But I did a lot of that through trial and error. And I firmly believe there is a better way to do it. So, what you'll experience as you walk through the different episodes of this podcast are some of the stumbling blocks, some of the challenges that I ran into, and others. As you'll see, I'll have special guests throughout the podcast that begin to explain and help better understand a lot of the components of church ops. I guess one of the first questions we have within all of this is, what is church operations? Honestly, the easiest way to explain it is it's everything but the preaching and the teaching. It's a phrase we use here often. All of the little things that happen in the background, from hospitality to next generation team, that's your kids ministry, your children's ministry, to the finances, the operations, the interior structure that holds the church up and allows it to function. And specifically, the group of churches that have 500 or less in attendance. Why that number? Why is that the benchmark? Why Church Ops 500? Because oftentimes when you're at a level of 500 folks or less in attendance to your services, the church operations person really is the get it done, do everything person. You've got to be the finance person. You've got to be the hospitality person. Hey, there's even a season where I was the worship person. So we have to be able to adapt and figure out multiple situations. And often, once you get past the 500 mark, you're able to start specializing. You're able to start employing people that have a single job. But oftentimes, the information of how to practically get there doesn't really exist. There's a lot of information out there that says, hey, here's how you build a church brand, man. Here's how you increase your engagement. Here's how you grow your congregation. But the day-to-day maintenance, the ability to take the information and the resources you have and be able to apply them to a situation and be able to move forward in church operations, there's just not a whole lot out there. There are great leadership books that help explain these things, and we'll dig into some of those and we'll jump into some of that information. But my heart for this podcast, the Church Ops 500, is for all of those folks that sit in a director of operations seat, kind of like mine, and you've got a lot of questions without a whole lot of answers. You've got a lot of challenges without a whole lot of resources. And my goal is to be able to provide as much information as possible to help you overcome those challenges. Why? Man, I'm passionate about helping other church operations, church administration teams grow and be able to excel. And like I said, to be able to step past some of the challenges that are created when we don't have the information in front of us that we need. And when I say it spans everything, I truly mean that. At this point, I've only kind of named ministry things, but who's changing the light bulbs? Who's making sure that the building is getting cleaned? Who's making sure that the building is operational? Many times, all of these fall to the church operations, the church administrative team. And I use that phrase interchangeably because the other thing you'll find as I bring people onto this podcast is they have a lot of different titles. They go by a lot of different names, but at the end of the day, when you boil the job down, we're all pretty much doing the same thing. We're juggling a lot of balls, trying to hold up the ship, keep it afloat, and trying to empower the people who are a part of this ministry to be able to do the things that God has called them to do when it comes to sharing the gospel and helping others know the love of Christ. Now, is it solely focused on just this church environment? No, I believe a lot of the information that I'm going to share is useful for anyone building specifically a ministry within the context of congregation under 500. And I also think some of the steps that I've got will really be practical for things that are outside of this world, outside of the world of church ministry, because there are so many places where there are limited resources and a high demand to be able to get things done, to be flexible, to be innovative. And we'll cover many of those topics. So we've got the why behind the Church Ops podcast. You got the why behind why I'm doing it. And finally, why the format? You'll notice that, hey, my screen is not the greatest. I'm not this massive backdrop behind me. I'm actually using Google Meet on purpose. I've got a low res camera because I want to reinforce over and over again that so much of what we do, especially at the level of 500 folks or less within a church congregation, is working with the resources you have. So I intentionally went, man, where can I shoot this podcast? I can do it in my office. I can do it at my desk, and I can do it with my church operations computer. And I battled and I struggled with that because I went, man, there are so many other ways I could wait. I could invest. I could get a better camera. I could get better audio and do all of these things in order to create a podcast that has this higher level of excellence. But then within that, I went, wait, at the end of the day, the very thing that I'm trying to help others understand would fly in the face of all of those things. So what I really want to be able to do is to take the resources that I believe are available to pretty much anyone and go, here's how you can use these to leverage your church ministry, to leverage the growth that's needed, and to be able to come up with solid plans when there's no training. I often joke with my team and go, I wish there was a school that taught you how to be a church operations director. That would be an awesome degree. But because of the varying nature of this role and what's required, often you'd need like 5, 6, 7 different degrees. And many times it comes down to a simple phrase. It comes down to a jack of all trades. Jack of all trades, master of none. And the final part of that phrase is actually jack of all trades, master of none. Better to be a jack of all trades than a master of none. I totally jacked that up. So I'm probably just going to cut that piece of the podcast. I think I can cut it. I can definitely edit. I'll edit all these pieces out and I'll phrase. So what is it? Master of none. So the phrase that I think truly embodies who we're called to be as director of operations, administrative folks is jack of all trade, master of none. But if you actually look at the full quote and grab the rest of it, it actually is jack of all trades, master of none. Jack of all trades, still better than master of one. And that's truly who we are as church ops, as church administrators. And I believe that with this information, you guys will at the very least be able to learn at an accelerated rate beyond what I have. And I firmly believe put you in a better place for ministry all around. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys subscribe, you like, and please go ahead and watch the rest of the episodes. We'll be doing this for a while and they'll come out once a month. I'll make sure that all of the alerts and all those fun things are happening in the background. So I hope you're going to enjoy me on this venture. It'll be a lot of fun.